all of the poor black people who didn't have cars, and there was no way made for them to evacuate. Not only that, but for them to be on the freeway, for my people to be in the Louisiana Superdome and in the Civic Center for 4 to 5 days with no aid, to the point that they have to begin demonstrating for aid, shows that we still have problems in America, and that George Bush dropped the ball. He was stuck on stupid when it came time to rescue and help those black people who were stranded in the water in New Orleans. And in fact, there are controversies now enraged in America all over, because people are asking why. Why did it take him so long to get people in place to help the Katrina victims? And racism is at the top of the list of reasons why in the minds of the African Americans.
Would that be the reason behind the outburst of the mayor of New Orleans?
Well, you know, I think he has to bear some responsibility too. Because if you notice, there were buses that were stranded and full of water, whereas there was no allowance made for the black people or the people of New Orleans who didn't have cars. So all of those who had cars were able to evacuate, but those who didn't have cars were left on their own. Yet you have 100 or 200 buses sitting in water when those buses could have been mobilized to help bring more people out. So I think the mayor, though he's a black man, he has some responsibility. He could have done better. But certainly, if the mayor dropped the ball and you have a federal government with massive resources, there was just no reason why men, women, and children in need of medication, in need of food, in need of clothing, in need of shelter, in need of being rescued, should have been left outside for 4 or 5 days in the most modern country in the world.
No, it was quite pathetic when the mayor wept. You know, I watched that interview on cable when he started crying, and he just felt so helpless. And how did the black Americans take it when you said to them that they have a family outside of the U.S. that they should probably go and experience? Because like you said, if they come to Nigeria or Africa, they will never forget the experience. And you used the phrase, the family tree.
Yes.
How did they accept that? How did they respond to that?
Oh, no, that's a good thing for African Americans to know. And they are always heartened when I tell them about how I was accepted in Africa, because that's the first question. Oh, so you were in Africa. How were you accepted? Did they like you? Did they treat you well? And yes, I've always been able to say with a straight face, I was treated very, very well in Nigeria. And so that makes my people feel very good, because they wonder, because they've heard since birth the Africans don't like them. They've heard since birth that if they go to Africa, they might be cooked in a pot. You know, the Tarzan image is still portrayed in America on cartoons as being the image of Africa. And like in my book, I sought to contrast that image of Africa that they portray in the media with the image that I would see of Africa with, you know, traffic jams, you know, she-goats and rams and afternoon traffic jams. There's a big contrast to the image of Africa of people living in trees and people swinging from tree to tree when I see so many BMWs and Mercedes-Benz here. So I'm able to give them the kind of contrast that they need to know who they are and what their place is on the African family tree. Because when I'm here in Nigeria, I see people who remind me so much of my people at home. I'll see someone's eyes and nose and I'll say, ah, that looks like so-and-so back home. Then I'll see someone else, they have a mouth just like someone else. So we're family, but we have been confused by Western news media accounts and the way that they like to portray Africa as being backward, when Africa is moving forward. They need to bring that up to date. And so that's why I'm actually really happy to find out that African Independent Television is also broadcasting to America. Yeah. Because that's going to help bring the image of Africa out of the doldrums and out of all of this stereotypes that they have always used to paint Africa as bad. And so the more that we are able to communicate, have brothers and sisters like me come home to Africa and see what it is really like and go back and tell the rest, then we're going to bridge the gap that divides us and unite our people. And when our people unite and work together around the world together, no force on earth will be able to stop us. In fact, I'm writing a second book called To Africa with Love, Journey 2. And so in that book, I'll talk more about my experiences I've had this time around in Nigeria.
Perhaps we're going to one day have Larry Travels.
Hey.
Just like Marco Polo.
Yes,
tell you.
or Gulliver.
Yeah, or Gulliver's Travel, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting. Let's talk about one of your books. You wrote History to Destiny through an Afrocentric view. Now, what exactly were you trying to bring out in this book?
This book represents a collection of 31 years of African American poetry. You see, I'm a poet and spoken word artist. And, you know, there are so many of them that I can just recite because I love my poetry so much because I'm speaking the truth. And so in this book, History to Destiny, you have 303 pages of poems I've written since, say, 1967 on up through 2003 when the book was published. So it represents a statement about black liberation, a statement about our relationship with our African brothers and sisters around the world. It represents the type of poetry that celebrates blackness and celebrates the good things about us and also points out the things that we need to improve, like ending black on black violence, both in America and Africa. You know, because once we stop killing each other, once we stop beating each other, once we start really uniting with each other, we will find our way easier to make progress in this country and in other countries around the African world.
Now let's talk about your Black Love spoken word. It's on CDs and DVD. I just talked about black on black. Black on black. Did you say black on black love or
Yes,
what?
black on black crime, black on black love.
Queen Latifah sang a song with that title.
Okay, that's good.
Let's hear about yours.
Okay. Now, my Black Love spoken word DVD and CD are meant to draw in people who don't read as much so that they will become readers. So it's a way to put performance in their hands. A lot of our young people, particularly in America, since the society is so fast, moves so fast, and they don't read as much as they should, you have to go out and grab them with the formats that they utilize most. They all like to look at DVDs. They all like to look at listen to CDs. So I've invaded those formats to, again, bring them back to a reading and an understanding of themselves. Because in America, a lot of our young people are lost. They have no idea of who they are. They think maybe that somebody in Africa doesn't like them. They have no idea of what really exists in Africa, except what the white man tells them through their media. And so this helps to correct those wrong impressions and through the most modern means. So yes, I have my Black Love CD. It has a lot of the poetry that is in History to Destiny there. And it has it in a format with music and drumming background that they can gravitate to, live with, understand, and then come back to read the books for much more better and in more in-depth understanding.
Let me ask this question, please. Okay. I've been wondering, you've talked so much about the injustice meted to the blacks there, and one would, what I thought was that these injustices would have made the blacks come together. But what you see a lot of times is, like you said, black on black crime. Why? Why do blacks kill themselves? Why do they attack themselves instead of uniting to build a stronger force over there?
Well, it's the classical colonial people's mentality, where you think the colonial master is so strong that you can't hurt him. So instead of hurting the colonial master who's oppressing you, you strike out at your brother who's next to you. We see it here in Africa, and we certainly see it in the West Indies, Jamaica and Trinidad, and we see massive expressions of that negative side of ourselves in America, which we call gang war, sometimes in the U.S.
Gangster.
Gangster rap is an expression sometimes of that frustration. And, you know, guys, instead of concentrating on how to unite and build a stronger force, are concentrating on having an image of being a gangster and having a gun and all of that. Whereas, if we were to, you know, not be emphasizing the gang thing so much and to emphasize the unity and working together, we'll find that we have enough strength to push down those who oppress us and enjoy our freedom much better. But until we get that realization in a widespread way, we're going to probably see more of the negativity. And so we hope for more positive thought among African American youth, among African American elders, even among our African brothers. And as long as we keep our family ties together the way we are today, we continue to communicate that Africa and African people must unite around the world, that we must work together, we must recognize and love ourselves and bring ourselves together and bring ourselves up. As long as we're on that positive course, we're going to get there. God bless Africa, God bless Nigeria, and God bless us all.
God bless you too, brother.
All right.
Well, Larry, let me take you back a little to something you said, and just brought to my memory, it reminded me of something that I saw about 2 weeks ago. Some very startling statistics of prisoners in the U.S. And what I saw was that 1 out of every 4 male black born in the U.S. goes to jail before he's 18. Is that correct?
Very, very much so. And if they don't go to jail, they're involved in the criminal justice system by being on probation or parole. Probation is like a divergence against going to jail, but then they hang it over your head if you do anything wrong. They
You're
whisk
off to
you
jail.
off. And then parole, those who come out, they still have the string because it tends to be a revolving door. When I visited San Quentin Prison back in about 1993, I was appalled to see so many young, beautiful African-American brothers in prison. Yeah, the prison system in America has a disproportionately high number of African-American males in particular, but also African-American females. And it's the options. Do you build more classrooms or do you build more prisons? In America right now, they're building more prisons than there are classrooms. And who do you think they're building the prisons for?
Now, talking about building more prisons than classrooms, a cousin of mine stays in the U.S. did say something which I would want you to either confirm or correct. Blacks would rather be gangsters or, well, some go into the music industry rather than go to school. How true is that, and why is that? Why do they shy away from the classrooms?
Well, again, I'm in secondary education, so I can just tell you for sure that when you study in an American high school, you see very few images of African Americans in the curriculum. The curriculum is Eurocentered. In other words, it's standards-based, and all of the standards revolve around European outlook, around white heroes, and around white philosophy. And people like Malcolm X are very rarely mentioned unless you have an African-American teacher. People like Marcus Garvey are very rarely mentioned in the school. And in the textbooks, you only see whites, mostly. So when the African-American kids look at the educational system, many of them turn off to it because they feel alienated from the white man's education. Because images of the blacks, like Dr. Hale Williams, who was the first heart surgeon, you won't find him. Dr. Charles Drew, the first black man who found a way to preserve blood that everybody is benefited from, you will not find him in the American curriculum. So much of the African Americans' history and culture have been omitted from the educational system that our people feel alienated from it. But we who are the adults, we have to draw that, that picture for our kids and let them know that we do have a proud place in history, and we have had many great contributions, though they won't read about them in their American textbooks. And it is because of that our kids, a lot of them are turning off from education and going to be gangsters and going to just think about being rap. But let's face it, everybody can't be a rap singer. And your best chance of progressing is through education and getting yourself prepared for tomorrow. And let me just be fair to all those good black students who are in college, who are in university, who are studying really hard, because there are a lot of kids who do the right thing. But good news doesn't sell. It's an old dictum. And in America, they very rarely show African-American students doing positive things. And so to those who are being positive, I say, we salute you when you're doing the right thing. And when you're doing the wrong thing and you're shooting at your own brother, you're killing your own brother, you're mistreating your own sister, you're calling your sister by the B word or the H word, we say there's a better way. And we hope that one day they'll see the better way.
Larry, thank you very much. We have to go now, but we say thank you to you for coming on this morning. We've been speaking with Larry Ukali Johnson-Redd, a black liberation activist from the United States, who's joined us this morning.